Hollywood seems to have an obsession with the combination of two things: leading men named Grey and the BDSM romance thriller adapted from a book that is marketed as a date movie. A pattern of behaviour I will look through in two examples: Secretary from 2002 and 50 Shades of Grey released in 2015, and how both of them have a terrible view on how relationships work. Lee Holloway, performed by Maggie Gyllenhaal in Secretary, and Anastasia Anna Steele, performed by Dakota Johnson in 50 Shades, are almost given parallel journeys in their respective films. Both women are fetishized for their inexperience in the romantic and sexual worlds. Lee is inexperienced in all avenues of life due to the institutionalization she experienced from age 13, and Anna is only just reaching full adulthood by American standards at the age of 21, coming to her university graduation. Anna is also explicitly mentioned to be a virgin. This leads to both women falling into the convention coined by Jonathan McIntosh known as
born sexy yesterday.
In their naivete in this element of the world makes them the perfect specimen of these men's sexual and or romantic desires as an ideal that falls into the trappings of sexist, paedophilic and purity-based implications. Our two female leads are shown to experience what could be seen as positives in these relationships, be it the independence building of Lee's or the financial experiences, prospective employment and fame of Anna's. These would be missing a key problem of these specific choices: the lack of consent and isolation for each of these women. In exchange for Lee's growing into a full adult, meaning the removal of her need to self-harm, the lack of her mother picking her up from work, etc., and being given the approval she desperately craves due to the domestic abuse by her father and the infantilization by her mother, Lee must surrender her immediate support circle and debase herself for the approval of Edward. For example, the walking home for Lee means that instead of listening to her knee-jerk reaction to talk to someone about the things Edward is doing, the time alone with her thoughts and them alone will allow her to normalize the actions by the time she gets home. For Anna, in order to receive a wealthy boyfriend who can take her on helicopter and plane journeys and an upgrade to her computer, she must sign a non-disclosure agreement and have sex in a way that she openly says she does not want. One example of this is found after her graduation when Christian has spanked her, then emotionally retracted, which is a recorded means of abuse, according to savelives.org.uk, which deems this a manipulative tactic known as stonewalling, which is also paired with the silent treatment, and something also experienced by Lee. Anna speaks to her mother and immediately cries, but is unable to discuss what is going on due to the NDA. Neither Grey is shown to take part in the act of aftercare, something crucial to the BDSM relationships that it allegedly shows, which is described by Mary Grace Garris for wellandgood.com as: aftercare is a concept that originated in the BDSM community, and it generally refers to the things you do to make sure everyone is okay and taken care of after sex play. It helps to prevent you from completely crashing after a feel-good chemical rush. Without this, the submissive in either story is left to deal with the fallout of these emotions themselves, something that can prove more damaging if the person in question has not requested the time alone. This proves that this is not actually a story about the correct practices in kink circles, but a power imbalance about a man enacting his hatred towards women. This can be seen in Edward's fear for his ex-wife, who is the only one seen not to be controlled by him, or Christian's tone of disgust when talking about his birth mother being an addict and a prostitute, and being the survivor of sexual assault from an older woman at the age of 15. This particular seemed to normalize the methods of this abuse, but also taught him that the women trying to know him and his vulnerabilities is wrong and dangerous to him, leading to more of his violent tendencies. Both Greys are shown to have harmed women in the past, Edward in the previous Secretary's experience repeated by Lee, or Christian openly telling Anna that she is the 15th woman to agree to this arrangement. The two Greys have another recurring character trait, a lack of understanding of consent and what a relationship needs, as well as a number of actions that constitute an abusive relationship. In the example of Secretary, we have the introduction of the sexual relationship where Edward spanks Lee for her typing errors. This is, according to rapecrisis.org.uk, classified as sexual assault. This is followed by a montage of how Grey chooses to dominate Lee, that if we are to take the context of the film as given to us, we have not had previous consent or discussions where Lee can veto these, including more spanking, unspoken humiliation about spitting out out gum, a saddle being placed on her at the front office, meaning this is exclusively to humiliate her if clients come in, and food control. Finally, the behaviour in this film's relationship ends in which Gray proceeds to masturbate onto her to his completion after first seemingly uncaring about her concerns about him assaulting her.
You're not worried that I'm gonna fuck you, are you?
Anna, on the other hand, is given experiences of stalking and sexual harassment at her job, love bombing, abduction, being undressed by someone who is basically a stranger who admitted to sleeping in the same bed as her, hoping that nothing has happened while she was unconscious, but has no means of confirmation, breaking and entering by the same man who then proceeds to have sex with her without affirmed consent, a lack of negotiation in the terms of their sexual relationship, control of her food and drink intake, subject to phrases such as, "your body tells me something different," in response to her trying to decline his assumptions of her and his advances. Rain.org states this as not a form of consent, and that this plays into the actions and phenomenon of rape culture and victim blaming when it comes to sexual assault. It is the language used to defend the crossing of boundaries and sexual assaults, or "you're sure I can't persuade you to stay and engage in sex with me," to which it could be plainly pointed out that if you have to persuade, it is assault. Her graduation is hijacked by Gray to make her conform to his terms of the relationship in using the audience watching, but making his demands in hushed tones so the crowd do not know what they are colluding with. A similar idea to the proposal that uses a whole restaurant so that the proposed will feel pressured to say yes. A constant barrage of requests for paperwork that is key to giving consent to be signed, and at the same time we are given examples that this paperwork is not needed and Gray will take what he wants. Anger from Gray when Anna wishes to visit her mother, yet none of Anna's wishes are respected in the film. Our two female leads as they enter these relationships are never shown to be more emotionally fulfilled by these relationships, or even seen as them building confidence. For example, Anna does not notably walk taller, nor does Lee with her constantly hunched shoulders. The two dress the way these men demand of them and are not given the confidence that goes with it. It is a costume for them. This can be paired with neither being shown as filled with arousal in their facial expressions. Instead, they are presented with nothing more than a blank look of fear or even heartbreak when these men go too far and hurt them. Both women are subjected to food control, as I earlier mentioned, and this is another key action of domestic abuse shown in the film. CEO of Engender Equality, Alina Thomas, is quoted as saying food control in abusive relationships can be both blatant and subtle. If someone is being deprived of food over a long period of time, they could end up having heart failure decades later, showing the extent of damage these relationships could enact upon either of these women should they go on for long term. The problem in these stories is not that she falls in love with the wrong guy. Instead, the issue is in the fact that she is so disempowered by her respective man, and all those around her know something or are meant to do something about it simply let them down. Lee subjects herself to debasing herself so completely she urinates in her wedding dress and physically assaults a man who loves her for her to improve her standing with her abuser. Anna asks Christian to give her the worst he can, and it leaves her so heartbroken she cries alone in the room he provided to her and walks out. In these respective universes, nobody does anything to protect a vulnerable person from someone who is a predator while looking through the lens that sets to romanticize the actions of manipulative, dangerous men who harm women while being framed in a way that is aimed at women to watch as a rom-com, but filmed through the eyes of the male gaze, showing us more female nudity than their male counterparts of the film, providing moments that emphasize love truly is when you are under the thumb of a man with more social power, that giving in to the misogynistic structures of purity culture does make you different, interesting, and more desirable. This all combines to ensure that some women will not see abuse for what it is, and instead damage their mental, emotional, and physical health, happiness, and safety in order to secure that prized storybook romance.